Me personally, I bought a house. Kayla and I bought a house this past summer, and there has been so many projects with this house that I've had to use YouTube for. Like, literally everything. We can't afford to hire it out and pay somebody. Like, so I got to be a YouTube certified professional in about everything. One of those things was trying to replace the ceiling fans. So when we bought the house, the ceiling fans did not have any light bulbs with it. It was just the fan itself. So there was nothing in the room to light up the room. So at night, the rooms got super dark. So like the first week of us moving into the house, we just had like some little $10 Walmart lamps in the corner to just get some light. Like there were no ceiling lights in the rooms at all, in the bedroom and living room. So it's like, all right, we need a ceiling fan that has some light bulbs in it and then gives light to the space. But then I'm like, I don't know how well I can do this. Like I gotta mess with wires and electricity. I gotta turn off breaker boxes. So I'm actually WhatsApp FaceTiming a friend that does handiwork. And I'm like, hey, does the green wire go to the blue wire? I'm looking at YouTube. And one thing I love about YouTube is that whatever the house project is, I can go at my own pace, right? Even on YouTube, if somebody can do it in 3 minutes, and they film it in 3 minutes, and it still takes me 30 hours, I can still go at my own pace, right? If he's like, all right, first take off the old fan, I can pause it, and then I can take off the old fan, I can hit play again, and I can pick up where I need to, then I can pause it, I can hit play again, and if he goes too fast, I can pause it, then rewind. Like YouTube is beautiful for step-by-step tutorials when you are doing house projects, or even just life. Right, if it's homework, if it's school, if it's work, and you're like, hey, I need a how-to step-by-step video, YouTube has it. Has anybody done that before? Like YouTube certified, YouTube tutorials? Like, you know what I'm talking about. And step-by-step tutorials are so awesome, especially when they're recorded, right? Because you can go at your own pace, you can hit pause, you can hit play when you need to. But just imagine, right, in the form of relationships, how easy would it be if there was like a step-by-step video that, like, if you're like, hey, man, I want to follow Jesus and I want to honor God at the same time and try to navigate relationships, like, where's, like, just, Deuteronomy chapter 3, here's the step-by-step tutorial, right, to go through the start and finish of a relationship, right? Because it's not there. There is no Deuteronomy chapter 3 step-by-step tutorial because relationships and dating is not mentioned in the Bible because dating didn't exist when the Bible was written. So the dating is not mentioned in the Bible to just try to find, like, a step-by-step tutorial, if you will. And wouldn't it just make it a lot easier if it was? Right? All the questions and confusions we have, it's like, man, where's just the step-by-step, the play-by-play? I can go at my own pace. I can hit plot. I can hit play. When I need to hit play. I can hit pause. When I need to hit pause. It would just make it a lot easier. But when it comes to relationships and trying to just navigate it the best way possible and honoring God and honoring the person, can we just be honest and have a moment to say, look, man, sometimes we just don't know. Right, like, hey, I'm trying to figure this out while I go. I'm not really sure what the next step is. Like, I don't know, right? Because each person is different. Each person is different. Each relationship is different. So for you to be like, all right, hey, this is the set path, the way I have to go, this step by step, from A to Z, it's not going to work. Because each person brings their own background into the relationship. You bring your background into the relationship. So it's two people bringing two totally different backgrounds into one relationship, trying to make it mesh and make it make sense. But then it gets a little messy, and then you're like, it gets a little confusing. You're like, man, like, I just don't know, right? And then you're trying to figure this thing out of following Jesus and honoring God and honoring the person all at the same time. All right, so can we just have a moment to say, look, man, I'm just trying to figure this out while I go. So my goal here tonight is to just kind of figure out or show a specific way. I'm not saying it's the one and only way, but it is a way that if you zoom out the lens, no matter what backgrounds you're bringing in, different variables you're bringing in, these same principles can apply. And you can take at least these principles and apply them to whatever demographic or situation you're in. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. The Bible does not talk about dating, but it does give us, and that's not an excuse, because it gives us plenty of verses in Scripture to say, hey, this is how you treat people, right? This is how you love one another. This is how you show compassion to one another. This is how you show grace to one another. This is how you forgive one another. This is how you honor one another. So for us to just have the excuse to be like, all right, hey, the Bible doesn't talk about dating, so I can do it how I want, when I want, where I want. I'm just going to kind of go on my own path. Like, no, right? Dating involves people. It's you and another person. And the Bible says, hey, there's a lot of Scripture to talk about how we treat people and treat ourselves and honor another person and honor God all at the same time. So that's kind of the foundation that we're going to use to navigate the step-by-step relationship kind of stages, if you will. With these foundational principles that the Bible does talk about honoring people. The Bible does talk about forgiving people. The Bible does talk about showing love and compassion and grace. and speaking the truth in love. Like all these things. So I'm really pumped for that. And you kind of need to know that, because I think, man, Christians, we take very drastic sides to anything. Like if there's a situation, we just take the immediate drastic side. Like we never just try to like balance the middle, because we don't like sitting in like the awkward tension. But I want to encourage us tonight to do this, because what I don't want you to do, and you need to know this, that this is not a check-off list. That you just look at relationships, you're like, all right, man, let me just ask somebody out, get checked, and then I go on the date and then check, and then I'm starting to date, and now we're proposing, and I made it to marriage. Right? Like going through navigating relationships biblically is not just a bunch of tasks or things that you do to check off to then end at marriage. Right? It's not a check box. I don't want you to get this mindset. That's not what I'm communicating to you. Is that this is just stuff that you need to check off and do to where it becomes just legalistic, and you just do it with your actions and behavior, but your heart is never aligned with the behavior you're doing. So it's not check boxes. That's not the goal here. And maybe you're here tonight and you're not a Christian. You're thinking like, man, this looks a little intense. Like, Christians and relationships, there's all these different stages and boundaries and things. Like, dude, this is so intense. Like, I thought we were just supposed to love each other. Like, let's just make it simple and love each other. But, and hear me, my goal is to not, be too intense or to be too forward. But if you are right there. We are supposed to love each other. But if you break down what loving somebody is, right, and how that displays to one another, right, in order to love somebody, you should respect them, right? If you're displaying love to them, you should respect them. You should honor them. You should forgive them. You should exhibit grace. You should be compassionate. So displaying love to another person would still involve these characteristics and these principles, right? If you love somebody, you want to lie to them. If you love somebody, you want to be abusive. If you love somebody, you probably want to murder. Like, there's just basic principles we can say, hey, look, we agree on love being displayed involves these principles and characteristics. And it gets messy when these stages get blended in. Like, and shout out to Doug Taylor. He told me this one quote, that the difference between a flowing river, fulfilling its purpose and is beautiful, and a nasty swamp are boundaries. Like, the difference between a flowing river, fulfilling its purpose, doing its thing, and then just a nasty swamp are boundaries. Like, boundaries is what makes a river a river. Same thing when it comes to relationships. Like, you're going to see that there's different boundaries in different stages, but the purpose is for you to walk with wisdom and walk with intentionality so your relationship life doesn't turn into a nasty swamp. And also, that no longer just hurts you, but also hurts the person you're bringing with you. So the goal is for you to have intentionality, to walk with wisdom, to honor another person, so you have a flowing river and not turning your relationship life into a nasty swamp. There's this the story of two farmers. This is I want to read Deuteronomy 11:13 to you real quick to talk about the story of two farmers. It says this: so if you faithfully obey the commands I am giving you today, to love the Lord your God and to serve him with all your heart and with all your soul, then I, as in God, will send rain on your land in its season, both autumn and spring rains, so that you may gather in your grain, new wine, and olive oil. And I love what God is saying here. Like, so if you are faithful and obey my commands I'm giving you today, conditional if statement, then I will send rain to you in its season. Like, picture two farmers. Like, you and the person who's sitting next to you. You guys are both farmers. You both have, 50 acres. You're doing your thing. And imagine there's a big drought in the land, right? It hasn't rained in a hot minute, huge drought, and you're out there, working the field. Right? Because when it rains, you actually got to have seed in the ground for it to grow, for the rain to have purpose. So you're like, man, you're believing one day it's going to rain. So you're out there sweating, and you got your shovels, you got your rakes, you're planting seeds, you're removing the rocks, like you're putting in the work to prepare the ground. And then your neighbor's like, dude, what are you doing? Like, you're just wasting your time. It hasn't rained in 100 years. You're just wasting your time. You're wasting your energy. It's never going to rain. But then the rain actually comes. Now who's the one who looks silly? Was it the farmer who had his field prepared and ready? Or the one who was sitting and making fun of the farmer that was doing the work? And my encouragement to you, that if you are single, in the same way a farmer prepares his field for the rain, and you are praying for marriage, and you're praying for God to bring you somebody, don't waste this moment to prepare your field. Don't spend this time like, God, I just pray for the one, and just give me somebody to ask out. Bring the guy into my life, bring the girl into my life, and then God, just bring the one. And then that person shows up, and you're like, man, I wasn't ready. All right, the rain actually comes, but because you didn't spend time to prepare your field, that rain's just going to waste, and now making the dirt muddy versus growing the crops. So if you were with us last week, we talked about singleness, that it has a purpose, that you have a God-given purpose to walk out in, and a gift. So if you are single tonight, my my encouragement is to walk out in that purpose while you're also preparing. Preparation and purpose. Walk out in it and live it out. So I'm a very visual learner. Anybody a visual learner? You got to see it. There we go. So tonight, it's going to be a little different. It's not going to be a usual sermon. It will be, but it's going to be a lot more engagement with you guys. So we're going to laugh a little bit. We're going to have some serious moments. And it's going to be very, very practical. Tonight, we're ending our relationship series. So we're landing the plane on it. We went from defining marriage, me isn't we until I do. We went from signs you're not ready to date. We talked about last week the purpose of singleness and to live that out. So tonight we're going to try to bring that all in to make it as practical as possible to see what it looks like to honor God through relationships. We're going to go all the way from the ask out stage to the altar, to marriage. So with that said, I need 2 volunteers, 1 guy, 1 girl. Who wants in? All right, Grayson, come on up. Give it up for Grayson, ladies and gentlemen. Malaysia, you're in? Come on up, come on up, come on up. Grayson and Malaysia, let's go. Let's go, let's go. Come on up, come on up, come on up. All right, you guys can start at the ask out chair. Grayson, you can have that one. Malaysia, come on over. Let's go. Let's go. So we're going to make this as practical as possible. Oh, you're good. Yeah, you can have a seat there. There you go. So this first verse or scripture I want to submit to, this wisdom principle we're going to rally behind, is Romans 12:10. Romans 12:10 says this: be devoted to one another in love and honor one another above yourself. Romans 12:10, be devoted to one another and honor one another above yourself. Everybody say honor. There we go, honor. So to make this as practical as possible, after we go over each phase, you guys will be able to text in questions. So we're going to mix this with like a live Q&A while we go through each stage. Noelle's going to get those questions on a laptop, and we're just going to answer 1 question per stage. So if we're talking about the ask out stage, and you got a question about what I just said, we're like, hey, what about this, what about that? Text it in, and then we're going to answer it right here on the spot. Sadon, can you throw up the phone number for him? So that question, it'll only be up for like a minute, so type it in your phone, save it, take a picture of it. So at any point in time during tonight, if you have a question about any of these stages, you can ask more than one, but we're only going to answer 1 per stage. But the only thing you need to do to help make this easy is title your text message with the stage you're referring to. So put, the ask out, and then put your question, or DTR, then put your question. So you can have it for, we'll put it up for just 30 more seconds, and then we're going to dive in here. So this will be fun. We'll laugh a little bit. We'll answer your questions. We'll make it practical, but we'll also be founded from Scripture. All right, here we go. Romans 12:10. Let's go back there. Be devoted to one another and honor one another above yourself. How you honor another person above yourself is something we're going to do in this ask out phase, right? Because you want to honor them to give clarity. So like guys, Grayson, if you're asking out Malaysia, you want to honor her, right? You want to honor God, but honor her. So a way you are going to honor her is provide clarity, right? You're not just going to ask her out and be like, hey, are you free? Like, because then she doesn't know to be like, free for what? Like, free to go bowling, free to go to Topgolf, free to send you, like, my homework I just did? Like, what do you mean by free, right? So you want to honor her by giving her clarity to what you're asking her to do. So then you have exact clarity to what you can say yes or no to. Like, you know what you're being asked, you have clarity, and then you can respond and honoring him back with honesty. So we're going to have honesty here and clarity play out. So guys, in this example, you want to honor her to give her clarity and remove confusion. And then you want to give them a chance to respond and think. Like Grayson, just hypothetically, for this one specific moment, Grayson and Malaysia are going to act like they're dating, but this is just a hypothetical thing. We're not prophesying or anything. But for example, Grayson's been, Malaysia, she's been showing up 3 strands, showing up to church, and man, you've been working on your speech for like 3 weeks in your head. Right? You've been texting your guy, hey, does this sound good? Should I ask her to go here? Should I ask her to go to Cookout or Olive Garden? Like, you've been hyping yourself up for like 3 weeks to ask out Malaysia, right? So when you go and you give Malaysia clarity, like, hey, would you go to Olive Garden with me Thursday at 6:30 p.m.? Like, you've been working on that speech for 3 weeks. She just now heard it, right? So guys, you want to give her time to actually think and respond to what you asked them to do. So you want to first give clarity, hey, the who, what, when, where, and why. Where are we going? When are we going to get there? Like, all these things. We'll use Olive Garden a lot tonight. So, for example, you would say, hey, do you want to go to Olive Garden with me Thursday at 6:30 p.m.? All that thing, like, that may sound petty, but that's also honoring. So now you can decide, hey, do I want to go to Olive Garden this Thursday at 6 p.m.? Or do I not want to go to Olive Garden Thursday at 6:30 p.m.? So you want to honor by giving clarity. And now, girls, here you want to be honest. If you don't want to go to Olive Garden at 6:30 p.m., just say no. Right? Just say no. Don't be like, well, I'm busy. Maybe if I'm free, I'll let you know, or just not even respond in general. Right? Because sometimes you think if I just don't respond, maybe he'll go away. Or if I just tell him I'm busy, he'll go away. But then he asks you again, then you say you're busy again. Like, let's just be honest here. Okay, let's just be honest. But for this example, we're just going to hypothetically say yes. So this is what it would look like, is that Grayson would say, all right, hey, Malaysia, we're going to go to Olive Garden Thursday, 6:30 p.m. You win. Malaysia, hypothetically, would say, yes. All right, so there we go. So that's what this would look like. But then real quick, should the guy or girl take initiative and make the ask out? This is a big cultural thing. Like, who should make the first move? Should the guy or the girl make the first move? What's the most honoring way to do it? Guys, we're called to be the leader, right? We are called to step up and to be a leader. Man, so I would always side that, guys, we have to lead. And the girl can give clarity and still give the guy room to lead. Like maybe, Grayson's not making a move and not asking Malaysia out, but Malaysia's like, man, when is this dude going to ask me to Olive Garden? Malaysia, you can give him clarity to be like, hey, if you ask me to Olive Garden, I would say yes. Just want to let you know. Like, girls, you can give the guy clarity on how you feel and still give the guy room to say, all right, cool. Hey, would you go to Olive Garden with me this Thursday? Girls, you can give clarity and still leave room for the guy to lead. But ultimately, the guy, we need to step up and to lead. That is the honoring way to do it. All right, any questions? We have a question, Noel.
There are no questions.
All right, we're going to move on to the date. So Grayson says, Malaysia, you down for Olive Garden Thursday, 6:30 p.m.? They say yes. So now they're at Olive Garden. They are on the date. You guys have advanced. Congratulations. You're on the date. Let's go. First thing you want to do on the date is remove the pressure. Sometimes we think, man, if I go on this date, I'm committing to this person for the rest of my life and we have to get married. Or if I just respond to their text message, that means I have to go on a date with them. And then if I go on a date with them, I got to marry them. Like we almost come up with so many hypothetical situations that we're committing to in our mind. That's not what reality is. Right? The reality is just a date, one singular date. It's not dating. You're not married. This is just one date. So the first thing you want to do is just, hey, take the pressure off. Right? This is just one singular individual date. Hey, be chill. Be yourself. This is not where you want to share your deepest sin struggles and your full entire testimony at this moment in time, right? The waiter's like, hey, do you want the breadsticks? And you're in the middle like sharing your deepest sin struggle. Like, let's just be chill, take the pressure off, and just enjoy getting to know one another, right? Just spend time to get to know one another. Go somewhere that's public. Go somewhere or do something that's in public, right? Don't ask somebody to be like, hey, you want to go on a date, but it's in this back alley and the lights are super dim and it's kind of sketchy. Like, you want to provide a sense of security, a sense of safety. So ask, make this date be somewhere in public with people. There's lights. It's in a public space. That'll open up a more safe environment, and ultimately that'll benefit you and your conversations. So this way, in the back of your mind, you're not thinking, man, am I going to get kidnapped? It'll benefit your conversations, and it'll remove any distractions. So this will look like, so Grayson takes her. They're at Olive Garden. They're sitting down. They're laughing. Grayson's telling a couple jokes. She's laughing at the jokes. She's like, man, this is cool, man. I get all the breadsticks I want. I'm laughing at jokes like, man, this is awesome. And then the waiter comes, and it's like the dreaded moment that terrifies everybody. Waiter comes and just asks the one question that just dropped a nuke bomb. Says, hey, is this on one check or two checks? Great. Okay, so that's not what we're going to do. But I appreciate the honesty. Right? Because this is a big moment. Like, hey, who should pay on the first date? Like, what is the most honoring thing to do, right? If we want to honor one another above ourselves, if we want to honor each other, going back to being honoring, who should pay on the first date, right? Man, guys, we can honor them by paying for it. Then girls, you can honor the guy by allowing him to pay for it. Like for some reason, man, we think, all right, man, if I just, maybe we can go 50-50, maybe she got more money than I do and she'll pay for it. And then girls, we think, man, I just got an alpha move. I got to, stamp my authority here. I'm paying for it. I ain't letting no man pay for me, right? Girls, you can honor him by allowing him to pay for it and allowing him to lead in that moment. Guys, we can step up and lead in that moment and honor her by paying for it. It would be like if I invited you to the mall with me. Like if you and I went to the mall, I was like, hey, I got these new shoes I've been looking at. They just became available. They're now in stock. You and I, we go to the mall. We go to a couple stores. Man, we found it. They have the right size, the right color. We get the shoes. We go to the cash register. They say, hey, it'll be $145. I looked at you and I said, okay, cool. They'll pay for it. Like you would look at me like, what? Like you invited me to the mall to go shoe shopping with you. Why do you want me to pay for your shoes? Like, but that's what this feels like and looks like. It's like, hey, I invited you to get food with me. Like, why are you going to pay for my shoes, right? So we want to honor them, say, hey, look, if I'm inviting you out and encouraging you to join me for this time, to sacrifice time out of your day, let me honor you by paying for this, right? And be wise. Be within your budget. Get a coupon if you need a coupon, and to honor them and pay for it. Going back to Romans 12:10, now honor one another above yourself. All right, so now we're moving to a crucial, let me ask, any questions there?
No questions.
Beautiful. So now we're moving to a crucial moment. And this is going to happen either between the ask out or on the date. This could happen at either moment, but this is coming to the DTR, right? So now, hey, the date's over. You guys had fun. You paid for it. That's awesome. You maxed out the credit card, but you paid for it, right? So then you guys leave. You do the awkward, side hug thing, and you're like, man, I had fun. You had fun. And then you say, the guy typically will say something like this, hey, I'll text you. I'll call you. I'll talk to you later. Somewhere in that shape or form. This is where we don't want to lie. If we're lying, that is not honoring. So guys, if you take a girl on a date and you say, I'm going to reach out to you, I'll text you, I'll call you, follow through and do that. Don't wait 2 weeks to reach out. That's not honoring, right? Be a man of your word. Let your yes be yes, your no be no. So if you say you're going to reach out, if you say, hey, I'll text you, I'll call you, whatever it may be, follow through and actually do that, right? So for this example, Grayson reaches out to Malaysia. Hey, I had fun. That was awesome. But then he follows up and says, hey, I had so much fun. Would you like to go on another date with me? Right? So now you get that phone call, and now here, again, we don't want to lie, right? So you get the text message, you get the phone call, we don't want to lie. And then, so he says, hey, will you go on another date with me? If you don't want to go on another date with him, you need to say, hey, thank you. I had such a great time. I do not want to go on another date with you. Right? You got to be honest. I know that sounds so brutal. That sounds like a gut punch, but it's honest, right? You don't want to lie, right? You don't want to be like, man, I don't know, let me check my calendar. I'm busy. Let me see what my friends think, or just I'm not going to respond for 7 days. Maybe he'll get the message. Like, we don't want to lie, right? Let's stop lying when we're dating, right? If you don't want to go on another date, just simply say, hey, look, I had a great time with you. Thank you for being interested in me. I do not want to go on another date with you, right? That is honoring them by telling them the truth and not lying. But for this example, Grace said, all right, hey, I had so much fun with you. I would love to go on another date with you. And you're like, man, that's awesome. I had fun too. I would love to go on another date with you. So then you guys move to the DTR stage. Come on over. Move it up to the DTR stage. Does anybody know what DTR stands for? Define the relationship. See, this is where we see most people tend to get hurt. On this stage, most people tend to get hurt. And this is why. Most people tend to get hurt because someone did not lead with clarity, and someone gets led on and gets emotionally attached further than where the other person is, which then causes pain and harm. Ephesians 4:32 says this, be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other just as in Christ forgave you. Be what? Kind and what? Right, so we want two more principles we're bringing in with honor. We want to be kind and compassionate. Lying to somebody or ghosting them is not kind and not compassionate and not honoring. Right, so we're taking all these principles, these wisdom principles, and now forming and bringing these ingredients together. Right, so this DTR stage, you went from you've gone on a couple dates, maybe you've gone you've gone on 3, 4, 5 dates. And one person's thinking, like, man, what are we? Like, what's going on? Like, we've gone on a couple dates, and then your friends start asking, like, hey, you've gone on a couple dates with Grayson. Like, are you guys dating? Are you his girlfriend? You're like, I don't know. Like, we keep going to Olive Garden like 5 times in a row. He can't even pick a new restaurant, right? And then you're thinking, like, man, we just keep hanging out. Like, this is great. I love hanging out with her. This is awesome, right? And this is where we see people get hurt. This is where we see people get hurt. And it happens, and side note, this can also happen at the ask out stage. Right? The same way you define the relationship, you may need to define a friendship. This type of giving clarity could happen at a DTR or at the Ask Out. But if you are, you go on a couple dates, and now confusion is starting to take place, some anxiety is going to take place, complacency is taking place, there may be a moment where you need to go, either or, whoever's having the anxiety and confusion may need to go, hey, we've gone on a couple dates, like, what are we? Like, where's your head at? Where's your heart at? Right? Because you don't. The longer you wait, the more pain it's going to cause. Right? The longer you wait, the more pain it's going to cause. Right? And this blows my mind. Right? Because I've had this conversation multiple times. It's almost like a repeating cycle. Like over and over, whether if it's at the DTR stage or it's almost like defining a friendship. Because what happens, and this goes both ways with both genders. Either the guy is more committed and more attached than where the girl is at, or the girl is more committed and more attached where the guy's at. And, somebody will come in, either the guy or the girl, be like, man, I just don't know what's going on. We've gone on a couple dates. We're laughing. It's fun. They're flirting with me. But I just don't know what's going on. I don't know where their head's at. I don't know what they're thinking. I'm like, well, hey, maybe it would be a good idea if you just asked them. And they would, you would almost think like I told them to murder a puppy with a baseball bat by the response. Like, seriously, I would go, hey, look, if you don't know what's going on, maybe you should ask them, hey, where's your head and heart at? But they're like, no, I can't do that. I can't do that. Like, what are you talking about? That's crazy. Like, why would I even do that? They should be the ones who do that to me. Like, you would think I told them to, like, kill a puppy with the response. And the same thing, like, maybe there's within friendships, like with a guy and girl. Like, one person's like, man, this friendship, it could be turned into something. Like, man, we're laughing, we're having fun, we're hanging out, we're texting, we're flirting. And now, I'll get asked, like, hey, like, what do you think about this? Should I make a move? Should I not? Like, I don't know what's going on. Like, hey, maybe you should just ask him. Like, no, I can't ask him. Like, are you crazy? I can't do that. Like, the responses you would think I would, like, set off a nuke bomb. But I kid you not, time and time again, if you don't define the relationship or the friendship, somebody always gets hurt. Like, somebody will get hurt a couple months later, and then I'll come back and ask, so how'd that situation go? Like, oh, man, it didn't work out that well. I said, what would you do differently? I probably would have asked him in that moment. That advice I told you like 3 months ago? Like, man, because I know it may sound too forward, it may sound too abrupt. I promise you, time and time again, it has avoided pain and has only benefited couples in relationships. Because how this could go is also very beautifully, right? Grayson's like, man, we've been on like 3 or 4 dates now. She asked me what we are. Like, I need to step up and lead. I need to, this is my moment to tell her, like, hey, I want to start dating you. Right, so this is the moment. Like, guys, this is our moment. This is where we get our boys together. We get hyped up. We're preparing our speech. Like, hey, I want to ask you to start dating. I want to go from a date to dating. So, guys, I'm going to give you a transcript, if you will, right here. Like, these are the things you can say word for word to define a relationship. Right, so write this down, videotape it here. Man, you can just say this word for word. You say, hey, I really enjoy spending time with you. I don't know if you're the person I will marry, but I see qualities in you that I value. I want to pursue this relationship intentionally. Will you be my girlfriend? Like, man, like, what if we just said that, right? What if we said, right, after this, like, Grayson, they've gone on 4 or 5 Olive Garden dates, and Grayson's like, hey, Malaysia, I don't know if I will marry you, but you do have the qualities that I value, and I want to pursue this relationship intentionally. Will you be my girlfriend? Right? Well, now, right, yeah, give it up for Grayson. That's how you do it right there, Grayson. Right, and again, so now the girls, in this situation, you need to be honest. If you don't want to be his girlfriend, say no. Right, again, don't ghost. Don't just say, I'm busy. Just say, hey, look, thank you. I love going on these dates with you, but I do not want to pursue a relationship. But for this sake, we're going to say yes. Malaysia will be like, heck yeah, Grace. Oh, I got too excited. Malaysia will say, heck yeah, Grayson, I would love to be dating with you. So now they move to the dating stage. Get up to them. They're now dating. Let's go. So we want to be kind and compassionate, lead with clarity, remove confusion, and remove anxiety, right? So we want to use our words and be kind and compassionate. All right, so now any questions?
Questions?
Man, this is easy. We don't have to answer any questions. Are you guys all waiting for like one specific area and we're just going to get blown up with them? All right, so now you're dating, right? So again, remove the pressure. A date is not dating until you define the fact, hey, we're dating. I'm your girlfriend, you're my boyfriend. But now this is not the final stage. This is not the end-all, be-all. This is not like, hey, we're dating, we made it, now let's start living together, let's combine our finances together, let's start playing married. Like, no, you're not married, right? So let's not act like we're married. You're dating. You're just dating here. You're seeing if they are who they said they are, right? This person you observed, this person you asked out, you're thinking, man, hey, they're a Christian, they love Jesus, they're honoring God. So now while we're dating, I really want to confirm they are the person they said they are. They are the follower of Jesus they said they are. So you want to be intentional. Man, use life experiences to your advantage, right? Look at what you want in a husband or wife and do that while you're dating, right? If you want, girls, if you want a husband who is great with kids, go on dates that put yourself in environments to where he will be with kids and see how he reacts. Like go serve in the nursery, go serve with kids somewhere and see how he reacts with kids. Right, girls, if you're looking for, man, I just want the alpha male leader, right? Go in an environment that would force him to lead and see how he reacts. Like use life experiences and things to affirm of the qualities you're looking for. Like use that to your advantage, right? This whole dating stage, you're seeing, hey, are they the person that I think they are? So be intentional and ask good questions. Don't date for 7 months and still only know their favorite ice cream flavor, right? But ask good, intentional questions, right? Just some good questions I would submit you ask while you're dating is talk about debt, man. Talk about your finances, right? Say, hey, how much debt do you have? Right? We've done Kayla and I. Oh, maybe you don't want to know. Maybe you don't want to know. But I kid you not, man. I've been in ministry long enough to see parents of youth kids, to do premarital counseling with a couple couples, and to find out they don't know about each other's debt until after they're married. Right? That's not the best time to find out, right? So just a good question to ask, hey, how much debt do you have? If so, how much, right? Or, hey, what are your thoughts on kids? Like, are we on the same page there? How do you view biblical financial stewardship? What does that look like for you? Do you have any past traumas? Anything in your background or history maybe I should know about? Any baggage that's being brought in? Or do you have any past or current addictions? Like you don't want to find out about a porn or gambling addiction until after you're married. Right? These are things you want to ask and vet while you're dating. And then if you forget all those, man, if you just want the gut punch question when the time's right, man, you can ask, hey, if Satan were to just take you out using your biggest weakness against you, what would he do? And then when's the last time that happened? Right? But I know that may sound forward. It may sound like, dude, no, that's way too forward. That's too strong of a question. But trust me, like these are things you want to know before you commit your life to somebody for the rest of your life. Right? Until death do you apart. Right? Until you die. The marriage vows. So you want to know these things before you yoke yourself together and become one flesh. Paul said in 2 Corinthians 6:14, do not be yoked together with unbelievers. For what do righteousness and wickedness have in common? What fellowship can light have with darkness? Like, hey, this is where you're going to find out, can we be equally yoked together? Are we following Jesus in the same speed, at the same direction, at the same time? Right? A yoke is a wooden beam that connects two oxen that are pulling something. So when he says don't be unequally yoked, like you are connecting yourself with a wooden beam to another believer. You guys got to be heading to the same direction. If one goes left, another goes right, you're going to break your neck. Right? If one's going fast, one's going slow, you're going to get dragged in the mud. Like that's what he's saying by equally yoked. You guys got to be chasing after Jesus. You got to be on the same page. And how that can apply to your life. Right? That can apply to how you steward finances. That applies with how you raise kids. That applies with just the daily decisions you make, with what you buy, how you buy it, when you buy it, what debt you pay off. Where you put your kids in church, if you do put them in church. Do you go to church as a couple? Like all these questions will be filtered through, are you equally yoked together? So while you're dating, you're asking intentional questions, not being too crazy. Man, go at your speed, go at your time, but also be intentional. Any questions?
How long is too long to be dating?
How long is too long to date?
Yes.
Man, I'm so glad you asked. That brings us to our next spot. Move along to the decision. Come on up. This will answer that question. So once you start dating, it should not take you 2 years of dating to decide if you're going to marry somebody. Right? Not saying you'll get married, not saying you're getting married in 2 years, but to at least internally know, hey, is this person I want to marry? Right? So there becomes a moment where you have to make an internal decision. Like you as an individual by yourself, you have to make an internal decision. Some people make this decision after 2 months, some after 2 weeks, some after 2 years. But at some point in time, you need to make a decision. And not saying, hey, if you make a decision at 3 months of, like Grayson says, hey, it's been 3 months of dating, this is awesome, I can decide, like I made the decision, I feel like I can marry her. Now that's not saying Grayson and Malaysia are getting married in 3 months. That's just him saying, all right, let me have a reflection moment. Am I still being intentional? Am I still honoring her and saying, hey, look, because, I mean, guys, if you're doing life with somebody and dating them and talking to them and hanging out exclusively, it should not take you a year to just internally decide, do I want to marry them? Just from an internal decision. Not saying get married in a year, but saying just an internal decision, right? And this is not a decision where you guys have to sit down together and be like, hey, I just want to let you know I've decided. You don't have to be awkward like that. But just as a self-reflection, like, hey, where am I at? Am I getting complacent in this relationship? Is just day by day, week by week going by, and I'm just cool with where we're at? Or am I still being intentional? Am I still being kind and compassionate? Am I still honoring? Am I still being intentional and walking through this with purpose to know that, hey, this is not the end stage? So let me just internally decide, is this the person I want to be attached with for the rest of my life? So you're at the decision stage, right? And this decision, you may be like 3 or 4 months in, you may be like, hey, I don't think I can marry this person. And that's okay, right? Or you may be 7 months in and decide like, hey, I don't think I can marry this person. Like, that's okay. But when you make that decision, you need to react on it and let the other person know, right? Don't tell yourself 4 months in, hey, I don't think, like, I'm not seeing the qualities I'm looking for. You know, they said they wanted kids, but he served in the nursery and he's terrible with kids. Like once you decided that, hey, I don't think I can marry this person, like, react on that and tell them, right? This is the moment for a potential breakup. Like, hey, we've dated for a couple months. It's been awesome, but I think we need to move into a different direction. I can no longer pursue a relationship with you. I know it sounds blunt. I know it sounds like ripping off a Band-Aid. And if it's truthful, you got to be truthful. Don't lie, right? So there becomes a moment where a decision needs to be made. Now, if you're looking for a numerical timeline, man, I can't put a stake in the ground and say, hey, after 4 months, 27 days, and 32 hours, you need to make a decision, right? But I would say just from a wisdom standpoint, if you've been dating for more than a year and you still haven't decided if this is somebody you can continue to pursue, then maybe you're not dating with intentionality. Right? Are you asking good questions? Are you using good life experiences? Right? And that's not a Bible verse. There's no Deuteronomy chapter 3 that says, hey, after a year, you need to make a decision. Like, this is just a wisdom principle, right? Because if you're texting each other and hanging out and calling each other every day and hanging out every day, like, you know more than their favorite ice cream flavor after a year, right? You've seen how they walk. You've seen how they talk. You've seen how they treat people. You see how they use money. You see how they honor their parents. You've seen how they follow Jesus. Like, you've observed and seen all these things, so you should be able to internally make a decision. And my encouragement would be, don't make the decision alone, right? Don't make this decision alone. This is where you bring in your biblical community, right? So before Grayson decides to either break up or to continue with the relationship, he goes to his community, like, plug for small groups, get in small groups and life groups. Grayson goes to his group of guys, and he's like, all right, guys, like, Malaysia and I, we've been dating for like 4 months. I'm thinking about breaking up. Like, what do you guys think? Like, am I the common denominator? Like, if Grayson has done this 10 times, he's broken up with 10 girls after 4 months, his life group and small group should be pointing at Grayson and be like, hey, bro, you're the common denominator here, right? Like, he should go to, before he reacts on his decision, he needs to go to his group of guys and say, all right, guys, I'm thinking about breaking up. Here's why. And then let them speak godly wisdom into you. To be like, hey, bro, this is just you. Like, it has nothing to do with her. It's just you. Or they may be like, dude, no, you're right. You probably should. Right? So whatever it may be, invite godly counsel into that moment. Or if you're deciding, hey, look, man, it's been like 5, 6, 7 months. I think I can marry this person. Invite community in. Be like, hey, guys, this is what I see in her. Do you think pursuing this is a good idea? Like, invite biblical counsel and community in, and vice versa. Right? The decision is not just for the guy. It's also for the girl. Right? For you to internally decide, like, hey, it's been 3 or 4 months. Like, where are we at? How is he leading me? How are we moving with intentionality? Again, there's a difference between intentionality and recklessness, right? I'm not saying in dating, just go with recklessness, pedal to the metal. But I'm saying go with intentionality, right? Go with your field prepared for the rain. Don't just move recklessly. Like, those are two big differences between recklessness and intentionality. So the girl, man, same thing. You're thinking 3, 4 months in, hey, where are we at here? Like, do I see myself as marrying him or not? Like, hey, do I need to initiate a breakup? But then also, same thing, don't make that decision alone. This is where you need your group of girls, like, to speak godly counsel into you and godly wisdom into you, but also to support you through that decision and to hold you accountable, right? Don't make this decision that you're going to break up at 4 months, but you've still been dating 5 months after, right? The longer you wait, the harder it gets. Proverbs 19:20-21 says this: listen to advice and accept discipline, and at the end you will be counted among the wise. Like, it says, hey, actually listen to advice. Bring people in with this decision, right? Don't just run solo mission on this. So the decision phase. Noelle, any questions?
No.
You have a question? What you got?
So, like, say he was like, yep, I'm cutting it off, breaking up. But
break up well, in a sense?
Yeah, and like, do you stay friends? Do you
Yeah.
stay friends?
No. Like, I was saying yes, so internally know your question. So she said, hey, what if 3 months in, 4 months in, they break up? Do you stay friends? Do you not stay friends? How can you kind of break up well, in a sense? Man, if you date well, then you should be able to break up well, right? If you date well, and, man, you have your physical boundaries, you have your boundaries up, physical boundaries, emotional boundaries, communities invited. Like, if you date well, breaking up, yes, it'll be painful, it'll be emotional in the moment, but also shouldn't be messy. Like, you guys shouldn't have to go and live in 2 different states because you broke up. Right? You guys, or I mean, practically, you shouldn't have to find different churches because you broke up. Right? If you guys date well, you should be able to break up well. Right? And going back to honoring, you want to honor what that person says. Right? If they say, hey, look, I think we should just remain friends, man, honor what he's saying or she's saying. Right? Don't be like, try to continue to fight on to be more than friends. Right? If they're saying, hey, I just want to be friends, just honor what they said. Right? And then maybe you need to set healthy boundaries with that. Like, hey, this is what a friendship looks like. Like, we can't just continue to act like we're dating, but just call it a friendship. All right? So honor what what is communicated in that breakup. Or, I mean, in that breakup, if he or she is like, hey, I think we should be friends, but you for yourself knows that's an unhealthy thing, and be like, hey, I really appreciate you telling me that. I appreciate you still wanting to be my friend, but for me in this moment, I don't think that's healthy for me. Right? But to communicate that, like, before you block them, before you ghost them, communicate that. Right? Let's not lie. Let's not lead people to assumptions. Let's remove confusion and provide clarity because we want to honor one another above ourselves, because we want to be kind and compassionate, like Ephesians 4 said. Did that help answer it? And that's a good question. Good question. All right, so now, if there's no questions about the decision, we move to the proposal. Man, give it up. They're now on the proposal stage. So, Grayson internally decided, he got his group of guys together. He's like, man, we've gone to Olive Garden 20 times now. This is awesome. She loves it. She loves that you can get the $5 take-home meals. Like, this is epic. He's got his group of guys. Like, man, Grayson goes to a small group and says, hey, Malaysia is awesome. I think I can marry her. His group of guys, they sign off of it, and they're like, man, I agree. Go do it. So now he's thinking about proposing, right? Man, one thing I learned, I proposed to Kayla, actually right here, a year ago. That's wild. But one thing I learned through that is that, guys, I guarantee you, this is probably true for about every female. How you think you want to propose and how they want you to propose are probably 2 different things, okay? Like, guys, we think problem, solution. We think, hey, if I need to propose, let me buy a ring, get on a knee, and propose. We think problem, solution. That's not, man, don't even go down that train of thought, right? Because this girl, she's been preparing this moment since day one. There's a Pinterest board, there's group chats, like, preparing this moment for day one. Like, hey, this is where I want you to propose, what I want you to be wearing, this is the kind of ring I want. So, guys, what you want to do in this moment is gather as much information as possible because you want to honor her with how she wants you to propose, right? So you want to know, hey, what kind of ring do you want, right? And don't be afraid to ask these questions, right? What kind of ring do you want? What kind of style? What kind of color? What ring size are you? Do you want me to propose indoors, outdoors? Do you want friends to be there? Do you not want friends to be there? Like, all these things, like, it's okay to ask those questions. Like, you don't have to be like, get a notepad and ask it. Like, over time, be strategic, ask her friends. So you want to honor her desire with how she wants you to propose, right? And there's also kind of a cultural thing of how much money should a guy spend on a engagement ring, right? At least from what I heard culturally, like, there's got to be a set percentage of a salary in order for it to be acceptable. Like, the guy has to spend at least 10% of his salary and buy the ring, or 20%. I mean, it's outrageous, at least from the things I've heard on social media and things. Some people will be spending like $30K on an engagement ring. Right, but what you want to do is at least know, hey, what is my budget for a ring, right? Because practically you want to know, hey, what is my budget for a ring? And if she is who you think she is, she'll be okay with what that number is, right? Now, I'm not saying go buy a ring pop. I'm saying honor her and get a ring, but also have good financial stewardship, right? Make sure you guys are on the same page of that. Hey, what does financial stewardship look like in our relationship? Right? Because what this ring is going to symbolize is way more significant than the price tag on it. So you're honoring her. Hey, man, what does she want? What does she desire? And then you're going to mom and dad, or, aunt, uncle, grandma, grandpa, whoever the guardian is, big brother, big sister, whoever it is. Because Ephesians 6:2, man, another principle. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with a promise. Right? You want to honor your father and mother. And if you guys get married, they are your future mother and father-in-law. So you want to honor them. Right? You don't want to just go solo and propose out of nowhere. You want to go, man, 3 months in advance, 4 months in advance. Hey, man, I'm thinking about pursuing Malaysia into a marriage. I would love your blessing. This is the kind of person I am. This is my financial situation. I'm at the healthiest point I could ever be. Do I have your blessing to get married? Because this is a big, tensions moment. Man, you'll run into parents who say, heck no, like, you're not ready. You guys are too young. Or they'll say, like, heck yes, go for it. Like, you'll run into a lot of different situations here, but ultimately you want to honor them, right? If they say no, honor them and try to work through a compromise and a solution. But, hey, I honor that. Man, if you don't think I'm ready, I honor that. What would it look like for me to be ready in your eyes? And can we work towards that in a realistic timeline? Right? So you want to honor your future mother-in-law. So you want to honor her desires with how she wants you to propose, but also you want to honor your future mother-in-law and father-in-law. So that's what Grayson does. Grayson goes, right, and he says this, man, here's another just, transcript, if you will. And he says, a kind of pro tip, this is where you show off in a moment. Like, you want to humbly be arrogant. Like, it sounds twisted, but you want to show off that you prepared your field, right? You want to show off that you are mature, spiritually mature, physically mature, emotionally mature, like all these things. You say this, thank you for meeting or talking with me. I want to honor you as an influential person in her life. I love her and desire to protect her, provide for her, and I have a steady job. My spiritual and emotional health has never been better, and I desire to love her as Christ loves the church. Can I have your blessing to marry your daughter? Right? Any father who says that, he's going to be like, man, yes, like that is the person I've been praying for. Of course, you can marry my daughter. So boom, he does this, and now, he proposes, and they move to the marriage stage. Give it up for him. Any questions about the proposal stage?
Yes.
What do
What
we
if
got?
the person has no relationship to their parents?
What if, the person that is being proposed to, or either the guy or girl?
Yeah, I guess the girl doesn't have a relationship with her parents.
If the girl doesn't have a relationship with her parents, the guy, you want to go to the most influential person in her life, right? If it's not mom and dad, is there a neighbor? Is there a small group mentor? Is there a pastor? Is there a big brother, a big sister? Like, who has been the most influential person in her upbringing if mom and dad are not in the picture? And then you go to them and say, hey, I want to honor you as an influential person in her life. Man, so that's kind of your go-to route. So just whoever that influential person is. If it's a big sister, big brother, a neighbor, small group leader, whoever that person is. And if you don't know, ask her. Like, guys, if you don't know, man, ask her. Like, before, 2 months before you propose, hey, who's been the most influential person in your life? Like, who has the most authority and the biggest voice that you would listen to? And then go talk to that person, right? So if you don't know, man, don't be afraid to ask that question. So now we got to the marriage stage. Man, here in marriage, man, this is where you get married legally, but also under the God covenant. Like, I think sometimes we try to find loopholes with marriage, right? We think, hey, if we're engaged, I put a ring on it, then we're married. Like, no, you're not married until you are married. Like, until you go under God, you're not married, right? But there's this kind of combination between a legal marriage and a under God marriage, if you will. And you can, that's a sticky train of thought. There's this combination between a legal marriage and a God marriage. And I would always encourage people to do that at the same time. Right? Have your legal marriage where you sign the legal documents that you're married, and also you're coming with a officiant coming under God to acknowledge that covenant. And try to do that at the same time if you can, if your situation allows. And man, this is where you guys need to make sure you're on the same page. Hey, what does a wedding ceremony look like? Like, what's our budget? What are we working with? Because, man, I would always encourage anybody, you can do an awesome, awesome, awesome wedding for really, 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 really cheap. Like, you don't have to go and spend 40, 50K or even 20K. Like, you can do an awesome wedding for really cheap. Man, I would encourage any couple that is now pursuing marriage, like you're engaged, you're pursuing marriage, go through premarital counseling. Here at Still Creek, we will pay for you to go through it because we believe in biblical marriages. So I would strongly encourage you to go through premarital counseling. But this is the moment where you guys are coming under God, and now you're in this covenant. Right, what Jesus says in Mark 10, verses 7 through 8, for this reason a man, bless you, for this reason a man will leave his father and mother, and the two will become one. So they are no longer two, but one flesh. Man, I would encourage you guys to go back to week 1. We talked about me isn't we until I do, that you're not one flesh until you're married. But now when you're married, you are one flesh, one team, one unit, one force. You are one flesh. Man, let's go. All right, can you guys give it up for Malaysia and Grayson? Congratulations. Yeah, you guys are good. So for the, just that 30 minutes you guys were married, but, wedding's off. But here's where we get to, and I want to land the plane with marriage. That marriage is a big deal to God, right? Marriage with what God says and marriage with what the world says is a big difference. Or even relationships, like how you navigate relationships with what the world says to do and how God says to do it are two different things, right? The world says, hey, look, man, why define a relationship? Like, what are you talking about? Right? If the girl goes to, the boyfriend, or the boyfriend goes to the girlfriend, it's like, hey, we've been dating for a couple of months now. Like, what are we? And their response is like, why do we need a label? Let's just love each other. Like, it's a big red flag. Okay, like, with what the world says is intentional and wise and purposeful and honoring and kind and compassionate, with actually what is true are two different things. Right? So if you're navigating this journey of trying to follow Jesus, honor the person, and honor God at the same time, it will look different than what the world says, and it's better. Right? God knows what he's doing. Right? When God said, hey, let's be compassionate to one another, he knows that because it's best. When God says, hey, let's be intentional in our relationships, he knows that because it's best. Right? It's not a punishment to navigate relationships this way, but it's what is best. Like, God to relationships is Elon Musk to the Tesla. It's Steve Jobs to the iPhone. Like, God designed relationships. He is the author, and he is the creator. And he says, look, man, I love relationships. I love marriage. And I want people to have the best marriages possible. So for that to happen, let's navigate it this way. Right? With intentionality, with purpose, with wisdom, with honoring each other. And what you'll notice is if you, as an individual, walk this journey of relationships, kind of similar to this. Again, this is not the one and only way, but this is just a way that is intentional and honoring. If you do this, you will filter out who is mature and immature. Right? If you start to navigate relationships, and you're like, man, this dude hasn't even asked me out yet. Like, he's probably immature, right? Or if you're like, man, this person, like, we just keep staying at dates and we're not dating, it's probably immature. Or like, hey, we've been dating for 4 years now, and every time I ask him about proposing, he's like, dude, why do we need a label or status? Like, those are, like, it'll filter out immaturity really, really, really quick, which will then protect you and benefit you. Man, some people I would just love to brag on for a second. EJ and Jaden, they got engaged this December. Shout out EJ and Jaden. And I was grabbing coffee with Jaden, and he was kind of sharing his engagement plans with me. They were going to go to Gatlinburg. It was an awesome engagement. He's like, they had a cabin. They were going to go to Gatlinburg. They were going to do that thing for 4 days. And I was like, man, you guys are going to go alone? He goes, yeah, we're going to go alone. I was like, hey, do you think it's a wise idea? He's like, probably not. Will you and Kayla go with me? And we were like, heck yeah, like, we would love to go with you. But just, I want to use that moment as a testimony, right? Because from a worldly perspective, right? Hey, let's get engaged. Let's get a cabin. Let's just go alone. It'll just be us for a couple days. No big deal. We'll sleep in different rooms. Like, all these things. Man, somebody who's doing it biblically, that should be their response. Like, you're right. That probably is not the most honoring thing to do. Will you guys come with me? And Kayla and I were just blessed to go, and we were part of that, and we got to see them engaged, and it was beautiful. But that's just an example that you guys can look to say, hey, look, man, it is possible to date in an honoring way. And just ask them. It was better, right? It was a beautiful thing. We didn't go and party crash. It was better. Go and ask them. They'll testify for it. But how we date biblically and how the world dates will be two different things, right? And how you hear responses, right? How you navigate that will determine, hey, am I following Christ or am I not? Am I being a light and salt to this earth or am I not? Right, man? So my encouragement to you is that, yes, it is possible to date biblically. Like, it's not a punishment. It's not worse than, but it's to benefit you. Like, it is a benefit to do it the way God designed. And so that's my kind of encouragement there. So I want to close kind of with this way. I want to ask our leaders and prayer team to make themselves available. Because if you look at these stages, each stage has a boundary, right? Boundaries is what separates the ask out to the date to the DTR to the dating to the decision to proposal to marriage. Like, boundaries is what separates each stage. And going back to what I said about a river and a swamp, when boundaries get crossed, and I'm not just referring to physical boundaries, also emotional boundaries. Like, some of us have been in we had a friendship, and it went south, but it felt like a divorce, simply because emotional boundaries were crossed. Or maybe you were in a dating relationship for just, a year, 2 years, and then you broke up, but it leaves this big emotional void inside you because emotional boundaries were crossed. So not just physical boundaries with pursuing purity, but emotional boundaries, spiritual boundaries, like all these other things at play. And boundaries is what separates this moment to come together under God with intentionality. And so I kind of want to land the plane this way, that if you are currently dating, been in a relationship, and you're like, hey, these boundaries have been crossed, and right now I'm sitting with some pain. Right? I got an emotional void inside of me. Or, hey, I got something I need to address. I'm in a relationship right now, and boundaries have been crossed. Like this flowing river that was supposed to be just dating is now like a swamp between like asking me still getting asked out to are we even married? Like, it's this nasty swamp. And so if you want prayer tonight, if you want healing, if you want prayer, my encouragement would be run to these guys so they can point you to Jesus. Right, man, and find godly people to follow, like Doug and Beth. Man, they're great people to follow. Tim and Michelle Henderson, like some of our leaders here have been married for a minute. Do what they're doing, right, and how they're honoring God. So if you need prayer for emotional healing, right, if you need to confess something because boundaries have been crossed, and you just need to run to somebody to confess it and to repent and to keep moving forward. Or if there's an emotional void that you need healed, run to these people so they can point you to Jesus. So I'm going to pray for us. And then if you are interested in our volunteer interest meeting, we'll be right through that double door back there. Father, thank you for tonight. God, thank you for allowing us to gather and to laugh. God, to laugh and to have fun, to be filled with joy. And thank you for letting us put on a different set of glasses. Instead of viewing relationships how the world views relationships and how the world says we should pursue relationships, thank you for allowing us to have a biblical worldview, to put on the Bible glasses with how we should pursue relationships. And not because it's a punishment, but because it's better. God, I pray for anybody here tonight that has an emotional void. God, they're in the middle of a heartbreak. God, would you draw them close to you? Would you draw them to these leaders so these leaders can point them to you? God, if there's anybody here tonight that is in the midst of a relationship but is getting swampy, boundaries are getting crossed, there's shame, there's unrepentant sin, God, would you draw them close to you to confess of that, knowing that you are faithful and just to forgive them and cleanse them? God, if there's anybody here who's not first married to you, God, would you draw them close to you? And it's your name we pray. Amen.